Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and I'm here today to bring you my introductory guide to the L-Star, Titanfall 2's energy-based LMG. Now this weapon can be a lot of fun, but it is a challenging weapon. It is far from competitive, and in order to be successful with it out on the battlefields of the frontier, you're going to have to understand the challenges that will lie before you and the ways in which you can overcome them to see true success. So let's actually start by talking about how the L-Star functions. This is an energy-based LMG. You do actually have to reload it, but then again you don't. So let's talk a little bit about that. Each and every time you pull and then release the trigger with the L-Star, it's going to have a momentary cooldown. Now the only time you'll actually have to reload, replace the heat cartridge on the L-Star, is if you overheat the weapon by holding the trigger for too long. So this is effectively a weapon that you can play an entire match with and never have to reload. And I in fact encourage that sort of play style. Ensuring that this weapon is up and ready to go as often as possible is going to play a big part in you seeing success with it. The more time you spend reloading it and replacing those little heat storage cartridges, obviously the more time that your weapon is down. It's one of the advantages of the L-Star over magazine-fed weapons that require a reload after the depletion of a certain number of rounds. It's one advantage that you have with a very difficult to use weapon. Don't blow it by constantly overheating these things and having to replace those stupid heatsink cartridges. So controlled long bursts that are just long enough to fire as many rounds as possible without overheating are exactly how you're going to want to use the L-Star. Because of course, the other difficulty here is that you can't actually short burst this weapon. As I mentioned, it has a brief cooldown each and every time you release the trigger, so you're effectively resetting the weapon and putting yourself in a position where you're going to have to completely re-engage that target with enough of a pause for you to be killed in. You don't want to do controlled short burst. This isn't the Hemlock, this isn't an automatic weapon where you're trying to tap fire it. Really, the big thing about the L-Star is getting your precision down, getting your accuracy, getting the rounds on target, holding the trigger till death, and then releasing, and doing it in enough time to not overheat it. That's the science of success when it comes to the L-Star. So that's one of the straightforward, really, simple to overcome challenges. The hard part comes from the fact that this is not a hit scan based weapon. It's an energy projectile weapon. It fires physical projectiles into the multiplayer space of Titanfall 2. These projectiles have a travel time. That's pretty slow, honestly probably as slow as the SMR, so you're going to have to lead targets and you're going to have to understand how these projectiles will be affected by your current movement and speed. All things you'll have to calculate and take into consideration each and every time you pull the trigger and go to engage a target. Those challenges aside, this is actually a pretty potent weapon, and if you can get as many rounds on target as quickly as possible, you can really shred people. I genuinely love the L-Star for its medium to sometimes close quarters capabilities. I'm not saying it has a quicker time to kill than a lot of the extreme close quarters weapons like the Volt and the Car and the Alternator and even the Hemlock when it comes to aim assist with a controller on a console, but it is still pretty potent. And if you can fire in a perfectly straight line at a target, knowing that all of your projectiles are going to hit that target, they're going to die pretty quick. The second piece of that puzzle is the fact that this thing is actually incredible when it comes to hip fire. I encourage hip firing with the L-Star as often as you feel necessary. In fact, ADSing when trying to track a fast-moving target is a really great way to miss all of your rounds. There's no way you're going to be able to lead a target when the aim assist is pulling you onto said target. Of course, it's a little bit different if you're ADSing with a mouse on the PC, but why would you want to do that anyways? Go ahead and hip fire this thing. The rounds will still fire straight and true. Just lead your target, hip fire, and kill, kill, kill. It really does work that well. Now, much like the SMR, the best way to be successful with the L-Star from a playstyle perspective is to be first to fire, to really set yourself up with good positioning and make sure that you're engaging targets that aren't aware that you're about to engage them as often as possible. Going head to head with a Hemlock or an Alternator or a G2 is a very good way to die quick. This thing just doesn't have the damage output at the same rate of speed as those weapons. I mean, when you consider the Hemlock, which can one burst you, you really don't want to just tango head to head with one of these people. Make use of the environment, be smart about flanking and engaging targets, and you can still be successful with the L-Star in a public matchmaking environment, even when playing against reasonably skilled pilots. Positioning at the end of the day, in my opinion, trumps just about everything else. Be the first to fire, have the better position on the battlefield when engaging in the target, And as long as you're sure with your shots, you're going to succeed in that engagement. That's really what the L-Star is all about here. Understanding those difficulties, great positioning, first to fire, and you can be successful with it. And you know what? It's a really fun weapon to use. Its audio design, its visual design, the way it cools down after each trigger release is just really stellar. It's quite fantastic. It makes it a lot of fun to use. And the fact that it's one of those weapons that kind of gives people when you kill them with it just adds to the risk reward of using the L-Star in combat rather than a Hemlock or a G2, so on and so forth. Let's talk a little bit about attachments though. You have a pretty reasonable selection when it comes to scopes. You can do the threat scope, the AOG, the HOG, Ranger I believe, and iron sights. It's all player preference. Some of you might choose to just take the irons and just hip fire all day long. I actually enjoyed the threat scope quite a bit because of just the boosted situational awareness in some of those more dense environments, being able to track a target, and then even if I end up hip firing them, you know, just having that red outline I felt like was kind of helpful, you know, when it came to putting myself into first to fire situations. When it comes to the mods, I honestly recommend that you throw away the idea of speed loader and extended ammunition. Neither of these things are going to help you with this weapon if you're smart about pulling the trigger. Speed loader, you'll never need it if you don't force yourself to overheat the weapon. And the extended ammo thing, if you really have to hold the trigger down for that long, chances are you're dead anyways. The enemy you were shooting at has already laughed at you and kissed you in the face with a couple bullets. So avoid those two and focus more on things like Tactikill and Gun Runner. Maybe you even want to do like, you know, fast weapon swapping, whatever. Just avoid speed loader and extended ammunition. I don't think either of those are really beneficial when it comes to the L-Star. Take this thing out onto the battlefields of the frontier and report back here, pilot, because I want to hear about your success stories. Honestly, give this thing a chance. It's stupid fun. The learning curve is pretty damn steep, but once you get over that, the sound of this thing and knowing that people on the battlefield are just going to be like, dude, there's that guy with the L-Star again. You know, you can hear it. You know when someone is pulling the trigger on an L-Star. And when they keep hearing it and then dying a moment later, it's kind of like you're making yourself a living legend, and that's pretty damn cool. If you guys have any other questions regarding the L-Star, feel free to let me know down in the comments section below. I'm going to go stroll on over there and work on that closer, and I'll see you in the next one.
Domination.